Hey guys, what's going on? So I've been thinking about this social distancing thing, and it might not be such a bad idea. Because all the people that are mad at me for saying it's bullshit, which it is, they can stay far away from me. I think those people need to stay they can stay more than 6 feet away. They can stay all the way away, like far, okay? I like those people. I don't really know. I'm kind of wavering between feeling sorry for those people and being disgusted with those people that are that scared that they can't grow some balls and have some common sense, right? I don't really, like I said, there's sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I feel sad for them because they're really brainwashed and they're really scared. And then a part of me is just like, you know what? Let them be scared. Let them do that. Like I think there's some people that just want to be scared and they want to live in fear. Maybe it's more exciting for them. Maybe they get off on it. Okay. So somebody wrote a really good question in the comment section, and I hopefully gave them as thorough of an answer as I could. And they said that I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact question, but it was like, I think you if you're watching, were you talking about Robert Kennedy or Robert F. Kennedy, RSB or Robert? No, that was somebody. Basically was saying that viruses can't hurt you. And is that true? Do you have any evidence to support that? It's off. I think this person has gone off the rails or something like that. So there's a long answer that I have, okay? I have to make my disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice. I'm not giving medical advice, but I want to say something that is true beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that in science, especially the biological sciences, there's lots of debate amongst a lot of things. There's not a consensus on this situation on a lot of things in science. And I want to first start by saying when the way the ideas get passed down through science is through medical journals, right? So somebody would do a study and they will publish that study in a medical journal. And when that is published, a lot of doctors or scientists read it, or scientific journal too, medical scientific journal. They read it and then they apply that information to their own practice, right? Because when you're a doctor, you're still practicing medicine, you're still practicing. So there's this concept that you're still learning as you are, once you're licensed to practice, you're still learning and you're practicing medicine. So this is how the ideas supposedly should be passed down or to other doctors by these journals. Now, the thing is, and the big secret is that the pharmaceutical industry and the criminals, the global criminals, control the information that goes through the medical journals. So unless you know to look outside of this circle of information, or you're not going to get the information that is most current or challenging some information that you've already been taught. I hope that makes sense. So because they control the journals, they decide what gets published and what doesn't get published. And there's a guy, his name is Dr. Germ, who's an MD, and he actually was an editor of a medical journal, and he's also a whistleblower. And he talks about this. There have been other people that have done studies on how information and data is collected to give to other doctors. And they all get low scores talking about it's biased and people omit information. And, so this whistleblower, Dr. Germ, talks about how people, he would have doctors come to, or other people that wanted to publish findings with very damning information that would, be damning against the pharmaceutical industry. And he was threatened and told not to publish certain things. That should be very alarming. They shouldn't have control over the medical journals. They're having control over the free flow of information. I hope that makes sense. So, with that being said, there is debate whether viruses are alive or not. And I don't talk about this that much because it gets very complicated and I'm still learning. And I don't really talk about a lot of stuff unless I can teach it to people in a very simplistic way. And that's what I'm working on right now. It's part of my self-study. But I would suggest, like I always say, the information is public information. It's out there. You can look into this too. So what's very interesting is the concept of viruses was actually brought into existence before they even had an electron microscope to see them. And it was kind of like this boogeyman that was used, like before they can even verify germs or disease or see, like, you know, bacteria or parasites or all this stuff. They thought, you know, it was kind of like a concept, but they couldn't prove it yet, right? So they would always talk about, they used basically virus to say if somebody was poisoned or something, or if they thought somebody was like possessed, they would use the word virus. And very interesting too, in Mandarin, the Chinese word for virus is bingdu, which means sick poison. So it's very fascinating. And so then when they got the electron microscope going, I want to say that was in the early 1900s that they had the electron microscope where they can really magnify and look down and see really, really, really small things. When they discovered this, technically viruses aren't alive. You have to be able to like replicate on your own, and you have to have like, I think it's like breathing, waste. I forgot the steps. I forgot the checklist of things that determine if something is alive or not. Bacteria is alive. Parasites are alive. But viruses are not. They integrate, they do other things, you know, like they can, I guess, they can multiply, but fire can multiply. Fire is not alive. I don't know. I'm still trying to think of a way to make this less complicated. If you want to get into this, you want to know more about this, you should research terrain theory. Pasteur was the father of germ theory and pasteurization, Louis Pasteur. He had a contemporary at the time named Beauchamp, and Beauchamp was, he believed in terrain theory. So just to simplify this, Beauchamp believed that if you had a functioning immune system, if you had the right nutrients in your body to support your immune system, you will come in contact with microbes and you won't die, or if you get sick, you'll be able to fight them off. So if you think about history, feast and famine go hand in hand. Famine and disease go hand in hand. It's because a lot of the people that were starving, they don't have the nutrients to fight off certain disease. I always like to use measles as an example because measles depletes your body of vitamin A. When you hear people dying of cases of the measles, it's in like the third world countries where they don't have adequate sources of vitamin A. You can go blind, you can die. There are all sorts of complications that can happen. Scurvy, vitamin C, people's bodies were falling apart, skin sagging, bleeding out of the eyes. It was really gross. You look up scurvy, they look like they're like zombies. But people thought it was like a virus at the time, and it really was sufficient lack of vitamin C. Sailors would get it, and that's why they, they figured it out, and they had start having sailors carry around like citrus fruits, right? Another one was like pellagra, which was lack of niacin, right? If you see the pictures of Africa and the flies are flying on the kids and stuff, and they have the big bellies and the big heads, it's because they have this condition called kwashiorkor, which means you have, I think, I might have it backwards, but it's like sufficient protein or not enough protein intake, but a lot of calorie intake, and it throws off an imbalance in your system, and it enlarges your liver. And because of that, it just jacks your immune system up. So you are more susceptible to things like malaria. If a mosquito bites you, the female mosquitoes, usually you can get parasites from the mosquitoes, and malaria is a parasite, okay? So you're susceptible to that. If you had adequate nutrients in your body, you can get that and your body will be able to fight it off. right? Because it builds up his own defenses. That's a whole, it's kind of like the same idea that they say that a vaccine does, right? Or even medicine, certain medicines. It's supposed to help your immune system, quote unquote, to fight off whatever is making you sick. Well, terrain theory just uses nutrition and, you know, making sure your stress levels are up, because if you honestly are stressed, it produces cortisol, a chemical in your body, and that makes it harder for your immune system to fight off stuff. And the big secret is, if you ever gone to like an alternative practitioner, they mainly practice terrain theory. They don't say that, but it's the allopathic medicine, which is a modern medicine that uses germ theory, right? Just kill everything with like a drug or a vaccine. If you have a fish for terrain theory, are you going to change the water? Or are you going to vaccinate the fish? You would change the water, right? You notice certain plants have a symbiotic relationship with insects and bugs. We do too. Most of our body is bacteria. We come into contact with viruses all the time. So what makes it so we get sick and, you know, sometimes and sometimes we don't, right? Pleomorphism is basically showing that a microbe changes different shapes depending on the terrain of your body, what's going on in your body. So if your body's acidic, then it's going to draw more disease that way. And if you have any microbes in your body, they're going to change shape according to the terrain of your body. I hope this makes sense. I'm not going to get too far into it. I'm going to leave some links if you want to look into it more for yourself. But also I want to say, if you look up terrain theory, they're going to talk about Beauchamp, and they're going to say that he was crazy, and anybody else that, you know, believes this is crazy. I would suggest that you read that, but you also read both sides and just kind of come to your own conclusion. And you want to, you know, maybe ask yourself, why is it that they want to bash people that, you know, promote terrain theory? Terrain theory is more empowering because it gives you the power to heal yourself, whereas germ theory says that, you know, you have to be dependent on outside defenses to build your body up, which, you know, makes you more of a slave in my observation. So also a thing to note, we did have a free market health system in the early 1900s before the Rockefellers and the Carnegies got involved, and they used PR and they used, you know, fear, basically kind of like they're using now, to X out all of the natural health practitioners. I mean, there was allopathic medicine, there was like you know, homeopathy, and there was acupuncture and herbalism and all. It wasn't like a big deal. People did have the choice of doctors that they went to, and but now they basically just pushed them out and made allopathic medicine, the modern medicine system that we have today, our main focus. Interestingly enough, it is the third leading cause of death in the United States. I would probably argue more if you add vaccine injuries, because those figures aren't even adding vaccine injuries. They're adding like unnecessary surgeries, diagnosis, which depend on, you know, tests that aren't definitive, which is not, it's not just a test that they're using for their coronavirus. Lots of tests aren't definitive. So you can get, people can get misdiagnosis from cancer or for AIDS, and they get on the drugs, and then the drugs kill them. Okay, or damage their immune system, and then they get other illnesses, or they get on drugs and the drugs lead to other side effects, which means more medicine, which means more side effects, right? Doctors aren't taught about nutrition in school. They're like, maybe, or I shouldn't say that, they only get like a few hours, where like they get like 2 years of pharmacology. And the new medicine that is coming out is, you know, the doctors rely on pharmaceutical reps to tell them. And also doctors are so busy that they don't have time to really read and keep up on the new information that's coming up. So it's just this whole conundrum of, you know, keeping doctors brainwashed to only believe that a pill or vaccine can help. I just got off the phone with my friends. I hope she's watching this. I'm not gonna say she is, because she's kind of YouTube famous, but we were talking, and she was saying that, you know, she's an older woman, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "You're not on medication?" And she's like, "No, I'm healthy." And he's like, "Oh, well, you like people, you know, people your age are on medication. You're not even on one medication. She's like, no. Why do you want me to be? She's like, why do you want me to be on medication? Isn't that like a good thing? Isn't that a good thing that I'm not on medication? Okay, so with all of that said, I'm gonna lead some stuff in. If you look at my Yummy Mummy, Emporium, Apothecary, the White Yummy Mummy, she's always talking about this, and she's healed a lot of people. I actually had health problems, and I went to her, and she helped me with my health problems. She's solid. I trust her. And Robert Scott Bell. And if you want to have empowering information about how to handle your immune system, and you want to know more about this like virus theory, the terrain theory, these are people that are talking about it, that give good lectures, that can probably do even better than I just did here. I know they'll do better than I just did. But Robert Scott Bell, Yummy Mummy Emporium, and Apothecary, and oh God, Dr. John Bergman. If you guys know of anybody else that's also talking about this on a really good, you know, in a really good way that can simplify it for people, would you please leave the information in the comment section so other people that are reading the comments could see this information? Now, with that being said, is when you see, you know, also another thing I find weird about this hoax is that people, you know, have been telling me that all of these like dystopic, apocalyptic virus / zombie movies have been all over TV, and they've just released that new Netflix show called Pandemic. And now my friend was like, yeah, you know, it was really weird, like I Am Legend and Elysium, and it was another like Zombieland, like all these movies. Why are they showing this? Sounds like predictive programming, right? So a lot of people watch this stuff and they think that, you know, oh, this shit's real. Like, this shit's not real. It's the movies, okay, you guys? They think that viruses spread like that. Even according to scientific literature, viruses cannot spread like that. So if you take into account that viruses aren't living, but yet they say, oh, viruses can survive this amount of days on this type of surface, then, but they're not living according to the main scientific literature. How is that so? They're contradicting themselves, right? Right, I think so, right? The only way that viruses can spread is if that they're injected into people. Now, I'm not saying that, like, again, I'm not saying that germs aren't real. Okay, because if you read up into the rain theory or germ theory, they're going to say, oh, we're just germ theory denialists and we're saying that germs don't exist. No, germs exist, but we're covered in germs all the time. So I'm saying there's something else that makes us sick, not the germ itself. What is it that makes us sick, right? So you have to look into that. You can't, there's also information saying that viruses are not airborne or can't be transmitted airborne and make somebody sick. It depends on the person's immune system and how, you know, it's so when you see these movies where people like has a virus, I remember when I saw The Stand. If you guys ever seen that movie, the opening scene of The Stand, it's the scariest shit ever. So it's basically about the end of the world, and there's this virus that gets out of this lab, and it just instantly kills people. And people are just dead in the streets. And it's like the first 10 minutes of the film just opens where people are just dead, like they're doing something, whatever they're doing, they just fall over dead since some viruses, you know, killed them, like got inside their body and killed them. And like, you know, you know, there are dogs and the dead dogs in the street, dead horses, just everybody's just dead. It's like the most morbid, scariest shit you'll ever see. And, you know, of course you see movies like that and you're gonna think pandemic, you're going to think that that's going to happen. I, for one, am not afraid because I know I know that that's impossible, because also people's immune systems are different. So it depends on their level of health. I don't think they'll ever be able to create a pandemic with a microbe. Now they can probably do it with like 5G on a large scale like that. They can maybe do it with chemicals on a large scale like that, because chemicals will make you also give you the same reactions. One of the theories about what's happening in China is they turn the 5Gs on, machines on high. They have a lot of them in that area, and that it produced flu symptoms and people thought that they were sick. So they went to the hospital to get a vaccine. By the way, don't ever get a vaccine if you're sick. It's supposed to be a preventative. Even in the inserts, it says you're not supposed to be injected with anything if you're sick, okay? Just heads up. So in the movies though, vaccines are like a cure, right? It's not a cure. Like it's a preventative, right? There's a difference between something in a syringe, like if you get bit by a snake, and you need antidote. The antidote is in a syringe that's injected into you, but it's not a vaccine. There's a difference. I hope I cleared that up, because I know people are going to say that. So what was I talking about? Shit, I lost my train of thought. I think I was talking about shit, I totally lost my train of thought. Syringes, the body. I'm just going to go back, and I'm trying to do this flowing. It was doing well, and I totally forgot my train of thought. Okay, so basically, they're going to call us germ theory denialists and say we're denying the germ theory. I'm not saying that we are, no, that's not true. So basically, if people are ignorant of this knowledge, they're going to be easily manipulated. Oh, I know what I was saying. That this shit's not, like the shit you see in the movies, it's not true, because people's immune systems are different. So even if you say you released a virus out into the open, it depends on the person's immune system, where they are with their health, who would die and who would get sick and who wouldn't, right? And then afterwards too, in the literature, it talks about viruses die out if you're of the camp, the scientific camp that believes that they're alive. They're credible scientific people that there's a debate whether they're alive or not. I'll just say that, okay? You have to decide, but it's not a consensus that they're alive. And there's different points of view as to what makes people sick. And I think it's very valid. And I think that we should have these conversations. And I don't think that it should be cut off. They're saying, oh, the science is settled, the science is settled. Science is never settled. You're always asking questions. You're always building upon theories to find out more. It's never settled. So I would invite you to do this research, because I think the thing that's frustrating me is I'm not even scared, because I know a lot of this. I know a lot of this propaganda that they're pushing out into the public. I've known about these tests before they even start testing for it, because I knew the test itself, there's no coronavirus test. They use the PCR test to test for other things, and I knew just in general, the way that they test stuff gives false positives. And I even left some links showing people that the inserts itself, or the information on the CDC website itself, says it gives false positives. So the more people that are going to get tested, yes, the more cases are going to go up. But they're really mostly, from what I'm observing, saying they're giving presumptive cases, which means they're not even testing people. They're like, they're going based off of symptoms, and that's very subjective. It's very not scientific at all. So, but because people don't know this information, they're easily manipulated. They're easily put into fear. But how powerful would this be if people understood terrain theory and germ theory? You'd have 1 billion people that would not even be obeying all this shit if they knew how much they've been played, and how much of a hoax it is, and how easy it is. This is the thing about the biological sciences too, because we don't have our own microscopes, so we don't have the knowledge. We're basically dependent on what we're told. Whereas somebody builds a car and it doesn't work, we know that that's bullshit. Or somebody, builds a plane and it falls out the sky, right? Physical sciences, right? We know, you can't fool us, because it's a real true science. Whereas, especially with the control of the WHO and the World Health Organization and the CDC and governments that have a vested interest in keeping people ignorant so they can profit off of your body, right? whether it's you die early and they can harvest your organs, or they can, you know, talk people into getting late-term abortions or post-abortions, or keeping people sick and chronically ill, not killing them, but just enough so, you know, alive, where they have 100 medications that they're living on, right, in order so they can profit from them. The human body is a very expensive commodity. It's a very, very lucrative. It's very, very lucrative, very precious, right? There's so much that you can gain if you are a parasite, a financial parasite from the human body. The amount of the things that people would do to stay well and to save their loved ones. It's also an easy way to compromise people. You know, you're a guy and maybe you're a good guy, but your daughter has cancer, and you know, the mob people know that there's a cure for cancer, but they're not going to tell this guy because they're going to blackmail him into doing something dirty so he'd have enough money for his daughter's chemotherapy. Do you see how that works? It's a huge thing. It's not just, you know, it's not just money. It's also power, keeping people ignorant and ill-informed. Okay, look at people that are just voluntarily staying home because they're scared, right, of a virus that they can't even see, that they're taking this word that, you know, it exists from people, right? I'm not saying people aren't getting sick or dying, but you have to have a test to confirm that's what they're dying from before you can say that it's this. Otherwise, they can just write off the flu or pneumonia or some other respiratory illness as the coronavirus and say that that person died from the coronavirus. The human body is amazing. The more you learn about your own body, the more empowered you will be, the less you will be able to be played and to be fear-mongered. And it's time that people start learning about this. It's public information. You don't have to be a doctor or scientist. You might have to get a medical dictionary and look some words up, and it might, you know, be some work. But in the end, I'm telling you, it's worth it. I swear it's worth it. And in the words of my homie, my mentor, Robert Scott Bell, as he would say, the power to heal is yours. All right, guys, that's it for today. Peace, truth, and love. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.